Hi, my name is Rene Martinez. I have been known as Guitar Tech Extraordinaire, Tech to the Stars, Have Tools, Will Travel. I was born in 1952. I started out not wanting to do anything with music until I was about 9 years old. And my dad always played guitar. So one day I heard him, after he got home from work, sitting down on the couch and strumming on the guitar. And I just looked over and it just interested me for some reason. I'd heard him many nights do this. And I told my brothers, you guys go ahead and play. I want to listen to Dad play. So I just took off to the living room and I sat down and I watched him. And then I asked the question, can you show me how to do that? And that was the beginning of my guitar career as I know it, and still involved with it today. He showed me 3 chords. He showed me a C major chord, an F major chord, and a G major chord. And these were bar chords, except for the C. And showed me where to put my fingers, and he actually was singing a song. And I was changing as fast as I could, but I couldn't do it very well. And as I was struggling to do it, my mother came in and said, okay, it's time to go to bed. We got school tomorrow. It was about 10 o'clock at night. And I said, okay. So put the guitar down, and Dad says, well, we'll pick it up again tomorrow and go from there. I said, all right. So I waited for everybody to go to bed. And when I heard everything quiet, I got up and went to the living room and grabbed that guitar and quietly took it into my bedroom. And I sat there until I couldn't stay awake anymore. And I learned C, F major bar chord, G major bar chord. And I learned to do it fast and clean and good. But he says, I'm going to find somebody to help you learn the guitar since you're doing so well. He says, we'll get your cousin to come over. He plays electric guitar. So first time introduced to an electric guitar, and it took me away from the acoustic guitar into electric guitar. And my cousin became my second influence in my life. He was the kind of guy that was, back then we'd call him pachucos. He was very egoist guy, you know, and he thought he was cool. And he had an electric guitar, he thought that was cool. And he played what he called boogie woogie music. And they were just blues riffs is what they were. And so he showed me that stuff. And we sat down for about 2 hours at my house. He brought his amp and the guitar. And I learned everything he had to show me that it was inside him that afternoon. I learned everything. And he tried to throw me off and he couldn't do it. And he finally just looked over at my dad and says, I can't teach him anymore. He knows everything I know. That's the true beginning of my musical career, guitar teching career, you name it. That's how it all happened. It's all right there. So I've never forgotten that moment. So whenever people ask me, how did you learn to play the guitar? I say, well, it's my father taught me how to play the guitar. So my first concert in my lifetime was Jimi Hendrix. And I got to see him play and perform with Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding. And those names became synonymous in my career because I didn't have a chance to meet Jimi Hendrix and I didn't have a chance to meet Noel Redding, but I did have a chance to meet Mitch Mitchell down the road. And that was because of the field that I finally got into. And I didn't think too much about it, except that for me it was awesome. And then people that I told about at school just sort of shrugged their shoulder and said, well, I guess that's okay, you know. But those were the influences of my life at that time. That was the electric guitar, and it was Jimi Hendrix. There was nobody else that I knew. There's a lot of other guitar players in my life that I liked, but I changed my whole scene around a little bit. And what I wanted to do was, I always wanted to be a different kind of guitar player. When I picked up the guitar with my dad, my mom and dad had these records, and one of the records that they played quite a bit of was this lady singer. Her name was Edie Gourmet, and she sang with this trio. At the time it was Edie Gourmet and Trio Los Panchos, and a famous Mexican group, Trio Los Panchos. And then Edie Gourmet was I believe was a singer, actress, and she sang a song, and it was in Spanish. And then I heard these guys play the guitar, and it was finger picking guitar. It wasn't a guitar pick. You can just hear the difference. And And this one guy was playing real fast, and it just caught my ear, and I thought, wow, this is what I want to do. This is the kind of guitar that I want to play. And I come to find out that it was not just called fast finger picking guitar, but it was called the classical guitar. And that's what I wanted to do. I had made up my mind that I wanted to be a classical guitar player. So I even inquired about it, and my father inquired about it and found some flamenco guitar teachers in Dallas, one in particular. And you could find classical guitar teachers as well, but the flamenco was what I wanted to do. And so all this was in my head at the time throughout high school, and I didn't want to do the saxophone anymore. And or the electric guitar was okay, but I thought this was the true guitar to learn how to play. And that was my quest. So I began to learn how to play the classical guitar. And by the time high school was over, I was 18 years old. I gotten pretty good, and then I went and took some guitar lessons, some more classical guitar lessons, and I figured this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to be a concert classical guitar player. And I went to a store at the time in Dallas. It was called Frets and Strings. And it was a store that was devoted completely to classical guitar and flamenco guitar. That's all the guitars they sold. Just like all the guitars behind me here, electric guitars, that's all they had was nylon string guitars. And I went in there and I found a teacher and started taking guitar lessons. And I practiced for 2.5 solid years. I practiced 6 hours a day and 2 hours in the morning when I wake up. I'd wake up about 6:30 in the morning, and I'd practice about an hour. I'd go to work, and then I would come back home for lunch, and I'd practice for about 30-40 minutes during my lunch break. And then when I came home at night, I practiced again, and I played until the time was, go to bed. So, and I did this religiously for 2.5 years, and I got real good, and not just technique good, but good player. And I learned a lot of classical guitar pieces at the same time. So a whole new world opened up for me, and I thought it was great. So at the time, I had to make money. So this story leads into, well, what did I do? Well, I was a car painter. I painted cars for a living, and then I took guitar lessons, and then I practiced guitar. That's all I did. Other times for other things too. I wasn't just a crazy guitar nut, but my teacher asked me one day what I did for a living. I said I painted automobiles. So he asked me, well, can you take a look at my car? He had an old 56 Mercedes, and I said sure, and gave him a price, and he said do it, and I went and I did it and painted it. And after I got it done, I delivered it to him at the store where I took lessons, and went into the store looking for him, and he was giving a guitar lesson to somebody, so I had to wait. And the guy that I talked to said, well, yeah, he's giving a lesson, you're going to have to wait. And he asked me, he says, are you Rene? And I said, yes. And he goes, well, my name is David Caron. He says, I'm the violin maker here. He told me that you were painting his car. He says, can I go take a look at it? I said, sure. So we went outside, and he looked at it and critiqued it real good. And then he looked at me, he says, ever thought about refinishing guitars? And I thought, no, how do you do that? And he says, well, it's very much like you're painting cars, except that it's smaller. And he offered me a job saying, would you like to refinish instruments for me? And that started the whole ball from there. So I said, goodbye cars and hello guitars. I learned my art of repair work through him, and I was doing all the major guitar repair at that time. So within about 1 year to 2 years, I learned pretty good. They were all impressed with what I was doing. And they wanted to really find out how well I was doing, and my expertise came in guitar repair and guitar matching, paint matching, mixing colors. I just had this knack, and I did that. Well, it came from all the car repair and painting that I did. My father was a body and fender repairman, so I helped him when I was real young, and he needed help at his shop, and so that's where I learned the trade of car painting and how to mix paints. And so I was able to do a lot of fiddle repair, guitar repairs, and matching all the paints and pieces of wood together, bridge reglues, refrets, fretboard disassemble, cut new slots for new frets, inlays, bridge reglues, pick guard reglues, you name it, I did it, and I did it all. And I got really good at it. And in about 4 or 5 years, I was actually just an outright repairman is what I was. Even though I had David Carone as my teacher, there was somebody who was there before me, and he taught me a lot of stuff as well. They were all very impressed with what I could do, but I just loved it. I just thought it was just a lot of fun. And I was making money too, you know? And I was in a guitar store where I could play all the classical guitars that I've ever wanted, you know, and still taking guitar lessons. So I was in a place that I was very, very happy with, and I couldn't think of going anyplace else to get a job, because I didn't look at this as a job. I just looked at it as something that was fun, cool to do, you know, and I could pay my bills at the same time. So I didn't know what my future entailed for me. I just knew that what I was doing, my heart felt it right, and I did it. And I went with what my heart said. So I continued doing it until one day it was time to move on to a different place, and I decided to venture out on my own as a guitar repairman. And I started meeting local